What is your fake it till you make it story? I, George Costanza'd my way into a job in high school. I was looking for a new job and went to apply at a local movie theater. The general manager asked to interview me on the spot, which I wasn't at all prepared for, but went with it anyway. This was like a Wednesday or Thursday night. The interview went well, and she told me she was going to be out of town this weekend, but she would let me know on Monday. I didn't want to wait, so the next day at school I got my work permit filled out and took it back. I dropped it off to another manager and told them she told me to bring this crap in. They asked if I could start the next day. I ended up working there for over 3 years. This guy hired himself. Not me, but my cousin applied for a brand new restaurant job and didn't get it. Her friend got the job and she was pissed she didn't get hired. So her friend told her where when orientation was, and she decided to fake getting hired till she made it. She went to orientation, all the training, introduced herself to all the staff, management, and made her presence known. After a couple of weeks working, everyone got their paychecks, except her. She went up to management and was like, WTH, everyone got paid but me. You've seen me working for the last 2 weeks. Management goes into the computer system and checks. That's so weird you're not in the system. I'm so sorry. It must be a clerical error. We will get you in the system and paid right away. And that's how my cousin fake got hired till she made it. I wanna be like her when I grow up. Well, now I gotta find out if this works or not. I'm an artist who works in the film industry. Some years ago my wife got pregnant, purposefully, and I had to try to find a way to make more reliable income while she was on mat leave and for the foreseeable future, as we knew we weren't only having one. I also wanted to stay in film. I got work as a grunt work lugging things around set and buildings, setting up large bits of lighting gear. No clue what I was doing. I started off on big shows like The Flash and Arrow. A friend got me work on a small set and only 13 days into working as a grip, which I didn't tell them, they made me the key grip. The key is film talk for manager. I was in charge of a whole department, which is one half of the lighting team. Faked it until I made it. Fast forward over 5 years. I have over 30 credits to my name as a key grip. I own an entire 5-ton truck's worth of gear that I rent out, which makes as much money per show as my wage did. My wife is back at work after having 2 kids and I'm a stay-at-home dad with consistent passive income and the time to continue to write and audition whenever I need. That's great. You imagined doing it and you succeeded at it. I'd always been interested in programming. As a kid I tried to teach myself C and Java with mild success. Fast forward to the time I'm 24. I'm working as a piercing apprentice at a tattoo shop making $20 a day a few days per week. I meet a girl. Full force at girl. Girl ends up pregnant. A few hours after the pregnancy test I'm applying for jobs on Craigslist and I find a PHP job a few minutes up the road. I've worked with PHP for maybe a few hours in my entire lifetime, but it was a tiny company and the interview wasn't technical. I lied through my teeth the entire time and get hired. After being hired I tried to start learning PHP on the job. The owner of the company created his own PHP framework which was god-awful, so I couldn't figure it out for the life of me. I got fired 2 weeks later. In those 2 weeks on the job I made an honest effort to learn more about web design and development, so I offered my design services to a local web design company for free so that I could learn. Walking home after being fired I called up the web design company and they ended up hiring me. I would learn on the job for a year or so and then take my skills to get more money somewhere else. 10 years later I'm the lead software engineer on a big project making just over 6 figures. If the pregnancy test hadn't scared me to death that day I would still be working dead-end jobs to scrape up enough money for weed and booze. My entire professional career, I played with computers growing up insofar as I knew how to turn one on, download a game, and play them very well. I knew next to nothing about building them, or troubleshooting them, usually depending on my friends to help when my second-hand PC threw a crap fit. Cut to me, fresh out of college with a waste of paper degree looking for a job. I get hired by an IT contractor, cause I knew a gal that knew a guy, with the understanding I needed to know the basics. I didn't know crap. I made it up as I went along, googling the living crap out everything. That was 10 years ago. I'm now a systems administrator. I taught a class on a specialty software program. I was learning the software myself and I was literally one class ahead of the people I was teaching. You sound like my comsl teacher, though she openly admitted to our class that she was basically doing the class with us. Fortunately, the class was extremely easy and didn't really require much teacher guidance. I started at a big ol' multinational in retail as a college dropout. I started at the lowest rung of customer service in a store. Now retail has lots and lots of staff turnover, and a multinational has a shitting of rules, or you'd expect them to have. Also, I'm not the dumbest around. Never mind the college dropout, that's another story. And well, to be fair, not everyone in retail is super smart. So there was a consistent lack of management, or they didn't care, and all the rules and regulations had gaps in them. So people start asking questions. How do I solve this? What should I do next? Etc. Nobody had an answer to these questions, so I started answering them using common sense or what I'd think should work. Just filling the gaps, which probably made me look a lot smarter than I am. Just faking that I knew what I was doing. So I started climbing the ladders and I am now the senior finance and operations director for a store with a gross turnover of over 160 million euros. However, cracks are starting to show. The company got a lot more serious and I'm surrounded by smart people with high degrees where I can't bluff my way through problems and meetings as easily. So, I'm thinking of taking a step back and relaxing a bit more on lower position. I was a lot happier then and had way less stress and way less hours. TLDR. Faking works until it doesn't. You don't have to take a lower position necessarily. See if the company can send you to some professional development workshops or even take a community college course on some of the stuff you don't feel strongly about. Imposter syndrome can run strong for a lot of working professionals. Take a course or two and hopefully it will help to bridge some of those gaps. During college, I worked part-time as a deli clerk in a grocery store. I had zero experience with deli items. Didn't know head cheese from salami, or provolone from Munster. So, I'd explain to customers that I was new and ask them to point to items in the case that they wanted and what the sign indicated for the price per pound. They always seemed happy to help out, especially when I gave them free samples from the slicing machine. Hey, this kid has been new for over 10 years now. I was desperate for a job several years back, so I wrote up this resume that was utter horseshit on a whim. Granted, some of it was legit, but a good 80% was me bullshitting. Amazingly enough, I got a call for an interview and by some miracle they ended up hiring me, and I worked for the place for 7 years before something I was actually qualified for opened up at another workplace. That bull's resume saved me from ruin though, so I always will look back in that crazy situation fondly. My piece of crap druggy brother-in-law used to lie and said he had heavy equipment operator experience. He'd get the job and get fired in a day or two, but pick up something small. Did that 15 or 20 times and kept moving around until he learned enough to not get fired. This explains a lot. I always have trouble finding work, but my pill-popping half-brother can get a job 3 days after getting fired from running a dude's foot over. I'm painfully shy and freaking terrified of speaking in front of people. A few years ago I started volunteering at my local animal shelter and would always sign up for a time slot before the shelter opened to the public so I wouldn't have to deal with people. I kept getting assigned new volunteers to show them the ropes because my time slot was when it was quiet and there wouldn't be interruptions. I really extremely didn't want to deal with people, but I went ahead anyway because it meant I got my own kennel key. I was nervous as heck and didn't know what I was doing, but plowed ahead anyway. Then I got the hang of it. Now, 4 years later, I'm one of the leads. I have access to restricted areas of the shelter. I'm one of only 2 volunteers allowed to update the animals' notes on the shelter site, and I'm highly respected and considered a role model. I'm still terrified, proud, but terrified. Voice. I had this file thing in elementary school where you have to put all your worksheets in a folder and my teacher will check it at the end of the year. Well, I did not do it and convinced her that I handed in, but she lost it. She said she will get back to me, and I'm still waiting. My co-worker has a degree in mechanical engineering in another country but was lucky to get a job in the US helping to fix the Y2K bug. He was told to search for error codes in software and edit it a certain way. He was so out of his league that when he made a mistake that he couldn't just backspace to fix, he would accidentally turn off the computer to restart it, just because he didn't know how to undo edits. He's now our lead Java developer. My business started by me just saying, yes, I can do that. I can supply that for you. I had no idea that they would be willing to hear me out. 5 years later and I'm now supplying desks and office equipment to over 120 offices in London. You really can go far if you just say yes. Last weekend I was at a wedding dance and they played the jit up. No one knew the dance, including myself, but liquid encouragement kicked in and I led the entire wedding dance. 50 plus people, in a dance that I completely made up on the spot. Everyone was so impressed after that I knew all of the moves, that I didn't tell anyone any different. I hope some of those people are teaching others your made up dance. Social anxiety. I was always the quiet guy up until a few years ago. I decided I was tired of not having friends and I started faking confidence and talking to everyone. In the beginning I was dying inside and felt like I was walking on glass. Now I don't know when to shut up and can talk to just about anyone. Not even going to lie, I used to trace other people's art so often as a young artist, like 8-10, but now, I have that guidance of technique with me when I create my own pieces. Tracing to learn art isn't bad as long as you don't keep doing it later. Honestly, I felt like this for most of my jobs in the IT industry. I work on Cisco voice systems and it always seemed like I was getting jobs that were just a bit higher technical level than I was at. So I was constantly working hard to learn what I didn't know to get to the level that I was supposed to be at, or they would have one of the Cisco voice platforms that I wasn't familiar with but expected me to troubleshoot and work on. Such as my current job, which has ARCs, call center stuff, and I'd never worked on anything but UCCX, which is the very slimmed down version of ARCs and is very different. So now I'm working hard to learn ARCs, but I'm always feeling like at any time they'll realize they can get someone better and replace me. Was told that in order to get sober I needed to find a church and start going regularly. I picked a church, went to every service, sat in the front row and sang along with all the hymns. After about 2 months of regular attendance, the priest asked if I wanted to take over the Sunday school class. I politely declined. I managed to convince a priest I was Christian enough to take over a Sunday school class, but it was still more than another year until I could stay sober, without church. Almost a decade ago, I was banging drugs and ended up in an induced coma. To save my heart, after coming out of a coma, I was still addicted to the drugs and needles but deadly afraid of doing it again, for fear of finally dying. I asked doctors, family, anyone who visited me, how I could overcome the addiction because I didn't want to go back to that lifestyle. One buddy just said, fake it until you make it. It just clicked and resonated with me. I lied to myself and everyone that I was afraid of needles and hated the drug I was doing. I kept on until one day I woke up legitimately afraid of needles. I was still in the hospital for all of this though. I was mostly lucky to be held and detoxed before release. The phrase has continued to help anytime I'm at a low though. 9 years sober in 3 weeks. Congrats on 9 years. My mom could never stay clean that long and it eventually caught up with her. Graduate school, doctoral program. Anyone who has endured this pain understands that the transition from undergraduate to graduate training can be very much intimidating and elicit imposter syndrome. Everyone in my cohort was faking it till making it, but in that process of stress and class and practica and comps and writing and research and teaching and learning, you eventually make it. But it's a big getting there, and every day early on feels pretty fake. Just gotta get your mental health right, get your physical health right, get your social support right, make sure to keep your hobbies up, try to research something you're marginally actually interested in, establish good relationships with faculty, your cohort, your pi, etc. Trust in your self-efficacy, keep grinding, faking it, and doing the best you can, until you come out the other side all the wiser for it. The competency and confidence will come, but not without the sacrifice of anxiety and time put in. A lot of people think doctoral programs are about intelligence. Sure, to some extent, but not nearly as much as people think. It's really about persistence, determination, commitment, resilience, and grit. The process will test you and break you, but you will grow, and you can succeed. Honestly, being happy and social. Going into high school I was in a super bad place. I was treated very poorly throughout elementary and middle school, and essentially was a social outcast for a long while. In order to make friends I faked being a social and outgoing person since I had a fresh start with different people. Now that's actually the way I am. Very social and friendly, and willing to talk to anyone. It's tricky to come out of that shell, but you get there eventually. I dropped out of high school in 10th grade. I hated school with a passion. I did get a GED. I started working retail and found I really liked managing projects and eventually people. I ended up leaving retail for a call center job in a fairly large company. Within 4 years I was running a marketing division. I had no effing clue what marketing was or anything. I'm just good at getting people to trust me, and I'm very creative. I got bored there and somehow got myself into another marketing role at an even bigger company. 5 years later I'm the CMO. I still really don't know crap about traditional school taught marketing. I literally faked it till I made it. I'm very good at what I do. Judging by your story, you know exactly what marketing is. When I was younger, I used to randomly apply for jobs out of curiosity. Worked at a ton of places. Junkyard, machine shop, security at a pea store, etc. Well, one job I applied for was an analytical position at a small insurance company. I have absolutely zero experience in any office setting except a call center, and was not qualified for the job at all. My resume was 100% lies. I even made up the name of the college. Well, they hired me. The place was so disorganized that I essentially just kind of talked my way into it. The people interviewing me didn't even know what position it was for. They paid me $60,000 a year. 3 times what I had ever made. I was 19 and absolutely rolling in money. I even had a little office. I didn't really know what I was supposed to be doing, so I just kind of flew under the radar. My parents thought it was hilarious. I was literally making as much money as my dad, who was a metallurgical engineer. Unfortunately it didn't last long. A larger company bought us out, mined the company, and fired everyone. I stole a couple laptops on my way out. One of the guys I worked with talked someone into giving him one of the company cars, a super nice BMW. LOL, I stole a couple laptops on my way out. Love how you put that in there so casually. A few years ago, my class had to write an essay about an important moment in our lives and read it in front of the whole class. When it was my friend's turn, he went up and did his speech, like normal. The teacher asked him to turn it in, and he said he didn't have it. Turns out that he never wrote one and just made it up on the spot. Recovering from some mental health issues, I had a really hard time around people, constantly questioning myself and their behavior towards me, but I just forced myself to believe the best and kept pressing on. I found friends that way and great stories. My undergrad major required a senior project. The honors college program I was in also required a senior project. Because my major was a pretty common one, the major in the honors college allowed students in my major to combine and do one project instead of 2. The project for my major required 400 hours of work participation with a mentor, and the presentation of the final project. I was also required to present my project in 2 public forums in order to graduate. Not only did I not get the hours needed, but I also just didn't present my project anywhere. But because I was split between my major and honors college, I don't think anyone took responsibility for me, and I graduated no problem. Still my best act of mediocrity to date. Did you know you'd still graduate without doing the hours project? Or did you just choose to not do them and accept the risk of not graduating? Well, when I was 16 I managed to fake being sick well enough to fool a doctor. It was end of the year, finals week. I had failed 3 classes and was at risk of failing philosophy too. Day of the exam arrives, I wake up late and start to panic. As I run to school I'm already making up a story about how I woke up feeling sick. The usual stuff. They say I can only do the exam if I show up with a doctor's note on the same day. Instead of panicking even harder, I don't even go home and instead walk straight to a kind of mini hospital. I don't know what to call it in English. Sorry, close to home. I get there after 1h of walking and find out I can only see a doctor for free if I have a partner card, which I didn't have. After another 2 hours to get home, getting the documents and making a partner card, I wait another 1h in line to get to see a doctor. When my turn arrived, I had already crafted what I thought was a master level narrative of how I woke up with explosive diarrhea, possibly from eating at a crappy burger place the night before, as it's not so easy to verify, and is mild enough that I didn't have to appear like I was dying for her to believe me. It wasn't hard to fake a sick looking face. I'm very scrawny and hadn't eaten all day at that point. She even measured my blood pressure and confirmed it was awfully low. In the end, she gave me the note, prescribed some medicine, and I did the exam 2 days later. Passed all the other classes as well. Still one of my proudest moments. My brother's resume looks good and bad in a way. He's had 9 jobs in 12 years. He's only been let go once, but he gets tired of jobs fast, and the second he hears he can earn more he just goes for it. I told him it looks horrible to have that many jobs in that many years, etc. But he's managed well. Currently living in a third world country after being in first world my entire life. I'm 16. Gonna fake that I'm happy here till we make it, fellas. I invented every higher up position I've had up till now. Started in call center, went to OM and said I'd like to help with the Christmas party. Hung out with admin assistants on off time to plan, but it led to them doing other things also and me watching, asking questions. Went back to OM and said, I've learned how to do blank. Can I do blank? What if I combine blank and blank? Created incentive program. Went back to OM and showed my work. Became in charge of that and was given a planning committee for any event, contest, employee morale. Half the time I didn't know what I was doing, but just by being sneaky I figured out how to create things they needed. This is just an example. I've done it with 3 jobs and have gotten awesome experiences, knowledge, and pay from just bugging people because I'm bored. Nice story, but I don't see any faking really. What you just did is learning on the job and taking on additional responsibility once you developed yourself. I was desperate for a job and acted like I had 6 years experience in low voltage and IT work. I YouTubed a shitload of stuff and went out my first week with a journeyman, then they sent me out on my own. He felt comfortable that I knew what I was doing. I now have 4 years of actual low voltage work and still do it to this day. Making a shitload of money now too. No college degree, no experience except in completely different industries. It really goes to show how much you can bulls your way into anything. Now I will say I'm pretty sure one of the veteran guys knew that I was winging it, as he helped all the time over the phone with troubleshooting and whatnot, and he never said anything to management. In the end my thought process was, what's the worst that's going to happen? They figure out I don't know crap and fire me. I'm embarrassed for a few minutes as I walk out the door and never see any of them again, so who cares? I suppose since they are somewhat reputable they could have warned other employers, but at the time, not being able to pay rent or afford food, I didn't give a crap. I enlisted in the army in my late 20s, and after a couple of deployments to Iraq in my 30s I decided to make the army my career. I wasn't particularly gung-ho. I know that's the Marines, but a lot of people wouldn't get it if I said I wasn't hooah. But I liked being in the army and I liked the people I worked with. And people liked to work with me. Eventually I got wounded and it was one of those Forrest Gump type things where I was discharged but not really messed up. So here I was in my mid-30s with no real civilian work experience, going out into the real world at the exact same moment that the economy took a nosedive. I ended up using the GI Bill to go to college, and thanks to a couple of semesters of community college I took before enlisting and taking a full load of classes every semester, including a full load in the summers, I managed to get my BS in Information Science and Technology with a minor in business in 3 years. After school I hustled my butt off and took one temp job after another so I could get some experience working in corporate environments. Somehow, and I'm not sure exactly how it went down, I managed to land 1-year contracts with companies that pretty much everyone has heard of. I started out doing basic data entry, which then led to data analysis, which eventually led me to my career in payroll processing. All of this from some high school dropout Gen X slacker who spent most of his 20s working dead-end jobs. singing in a punk band and smoking weed every day. When I went to college after the army, I had no idea how to do crap with computers. Like, I could surf the internet and play video games, but that was it. And not counting the army, my most impressive job title was assistant third shift stock manager at a grocery store. I managed to fake it until I made it to the point that now companies are calling me to lure me away from my current gig so I can head up their payroll department. Went from hospitality at a casino to an engineer by faking my resume. I had general electrical knowledge, but that's it. Within 6 months got promoted and left to a higher paying job where I constantly feel like the least experienced engineer telling my engineers how to do their job. Granted, I studied a lot, but my old chief engineer said I was like Leonardo DiCaprio in Catch Me If You Can. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.